If you send them your requests in advance, and you show them that you have very good documentation to support what your requests are, and you also show them that, look, here's why I'm asking for what I'm asking for. These are the expectations that we have. And by the way, if the people are not available who need to be there to make these decisions, would you please call us back and let us reschedule that? Because we need to have the whole team present. That's at the bottom of every letter that I write. By the way, we need all of the major decision makers there. If for some reason the people that need to be there are not available, please call me back and let's reschedule this at a mutually convenient time. Because the last thing that you want to happen is to be asking for ABA and have the psychologist or the behavior person not there. That's not going to do us any good. And a lot of times it happens and then the team makes a decision on something without the critical person there. That's nuts. So we want to make sure that all of the representatives of the team are there. One other point that I'll make about that I think is really critical. One of the things that I hear an awful lot is, for instance, and again, I use ABA a lot because this is something that we just encounter all the time. We'll have a family asking for ABA, and the LEA will basically say, well, we're really not prepared to make a decision on that today. I'm really not in a position to allocate those funds and to make that kind of a decision. I'm going to have to talk with my superiors and blah, blah, blah. That's actually not legal. One of the things that you find with an LEA, the person who's representing the school, is that the LEA needs to be a person that is representing the interest of the school. They need to be a person who understands the special education curriculum. They need to be someone who has, not should have, who has the ability to make the decisions and has the ability to allocate the resources that are necessary to do this. So when you get conversations like that where you hear things that are said, well, you know, I just don't have the ability to make that kind of a decision. I'm going to have to check with my superiors. And gang, I'm really nice when I do this. You know, you can ask people to take a long walk on a short pier and have them thank you for it if you're nice about it. And you're going to get a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Don't raise your voices. Don't be ugly. You're not going to get anywhere doing that. I'll say, gosh, you know, let me ask you a question. Because I thought, and I play stupid big time, I thought that the LEA was supposed to be somebody that had the ability to allocate those resources and make those decisions. So either we have an LEA that is not based on the law what we're supposed to have, or we have an LEA that has those abilities and you're choosing not to use them. Which is it? Do you know what I'm saying? It's one or the other, gang. It's not, you know. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about when you have to think ahead of time of what are the things that are going to be coming up, what are the objections that you're expecting to hear, and how are you going to overcome them? Because when you get emotionally engaged in this, and as parents we all do, and by the way, if you can separate yourself, which I know that's easy to say and hard to do it if you can. If you have the ability to treat it like you're handling this for your next door neighbor, if you can pull your emotions out of it, sometimes you can get so much more done. But that's very, very hard to do. But you have to ask the questions. A roundabout session is something that we talk about when, you know, we said, here's our circle of people right here. And the LEA's running the whole meeting and has said, you know, we've decided that we're not going to do ABA for whatever reason. And none of these guys are piping up. All the talking's coming right here from the LEA. And it's seeming to me, on a lot of occasions, that that's kind of more of an administrative decision than it is a decision based on the particular needs of that child. And so I start going around the room, and I'll say, well, Mary, you're the classroom teacher, and I'm just really curious, what is your thought about you know, providing the ABA for Johnny? Do you think this is something critical for his education? And they'll go, because they're not expecting to be put on the spot. And usually by the time I get to the second or third person, the LEA is stopping it. And they're trying to train wreck us and move us in a different direction. And I don't let it happen. And I'll typically say something to the degree of, well, you know, Mr. Johnson, while I really appreciate our need for speed here, this is my son's future. And this is a team decision. And I think it's absolutely critical that the entire team weighs in on this, because here's the bottom line. All the research that I've done shows that this is an enormously critical component in my child's education, and it's being denied. So in order for me to be able to sleep really well at night, I need to be able to justify that decision. And so I'd like to know how we arrived at that. So I'm sorry, Jan, what were you saying? I go all the way around. And what's really interesting is 9 times out of 10, when you catch them off guard, they tell the truth. Not that they don't generally. I'm not in any way insinuating that they're not truthful, but it's kind of interesting. When you catch them off guard, they have a tendency to really kind of come clean on what their thoughts are. And 9 times out of 10, by the time you get around the table, everybody on the team but the LEA has said, well, yeah, I think it would be helpful. Well, gosh, I guess the team decided, huh? Because it's a team decision, isn't it? And if it's a team decision and a whole team is deciding that this is what's helpful for Johnny, and we have one person saying, we're not doing that, what's wrong with that picture? This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about from a strategy standpoint that you have to think about ahead of time. You got to know what you're going to say and how you're going to respond to these things. Okay, this is huge. Evaluations. How many of you have ever done an ABLES? Yay! I love you guys. Okay, that is probably one of the best tools I've ever used for evaluating these kids, because it covers so many different areas. It shows us where all the holes are. It gives us all of those pre-academic learning skills that are usually missing with so many of these kids. And by the time we get to 2nd and 3rd grade and our building foundation is Swiss cheese, and we start adding a 3rd story, that puppy's coming down. So we want to fill in all of those holes, and ABLES is a perfect way to do it, because it allows you to really evaluate these kids across every area and look at where the deficiencies are. The beauty of it also